Are you sick of all your political overlords being right all the time? I know, sing it, sister! Well, if you want a break from everybody being right, if you want somebody that's pretty much wrong about every single thing all the time, one needs to look no further than Elizabeth Warren. Elizabeth Warren is financially illiterate despite having a number of government roles in treasury and finance, which makes perfect sense because the world is trash. She has a storied and well-documented history of just flat-out lying about stuff, including being fired for being pregnant, which is a total lie, and saying that she has Native American heritage, which she then got a test for to supposedly prove that it was true, and then it was more than clearly obvious that it wasn't, and even Native American tribes were like, stop doing this, no, just no, please. And despite the fact that she received underwhelming support when she ran for president, got a pretty much no votes at all, and had a ridiculous and absolutely insane financial plan that included all of the wrong things, obviously. Pretty much every single thing that Elizabeth Warren says is victim, victim, here's a victim. Look, everyone is a victim and only the government can save us. And naturally, because who cares what people say and what actually occurs, she complained about Donnie Baseball's executive orders, yet is celebrating Joey Basement's executive orders. Dope. So if you want a ridiculously clear picture of absolutely what not to think about stuff, just go to Elizabeth Warren's Twitter. It's sad. It's exhausting, Pop. It's like, how could you be wrong about so many things? I love when she used to do some Facebook live streams and stuff, and I loved how she tried to connect with your everyday American. She's like, hey guys, I want to talk about how everyone's a victim and only I can solve it. Hold on, let me go crack open a brewski. Let me go grab a pop. Let me go grab a beer. Yeah, it's an IPA. I love those. Nobody wants to have a beer with you, Elizabeth. Oh, here's what the Joey Basement administration can do on day one. Cue uplifting piano music and wrong. Canceling student loan debt would immediately put money in the pockets of millions of Americans. Oh, really? Is that what it would do, Liz? In fact, it would just take money out of the pockets of all Americans by just printing endless amounts of money while we're in a huge mountain of debt, devaluing everybody's currency, and also setting an extremely dangerous precedent going forward that the government will just bail you out of all things. Meanwhile, all of the people that worked really, really hard to pay off all those debts, well, they're stuck holding the bag. No big deal. Millions of Americans have lost their jobs or had their hours cut because of this clamdemic. No, millions of Americans have had their hours cut and lost their jobs because of government restriction and lockdown, Liz. Now, Elizabeth Warren is not stupid, and I have a lot of respect for her for being a successful woman that is hardworking and clearly intelligent to a high degree. She was a law professor. She taught at Harvard. Clearly, she is more than capable. I just strongly believe that her economic policies and her propensity to just flat out lie about stuff and then accuse everybody else about lying about stuff is just kind of not very genuine. I also find it interesting how she uses colorful language to dance around the truth and not really get to the core root of a problem, but instead just focuses on the surface and uses victim, victim, victim and very matter-of-facty type of language to prove to you that everyone's a victim. If you don't support this, you're supporting people being a victim, and big bad, everybody is gonna come down put their boot on you and squash you. And only Elizabeth Warren can have a cold pop and tell you how it should be done. Something she's been railing on for a long time now is the 2-cent wealth tax. It's only 2 cents. It's only 2 cents for the big bad wealthy. Only a couple of cents. Only a couple more pennies. Oh. As I have made more than clear in previous videos that taxing American citizens, wealthy or not, is a bad policy for an over-bloated and grotesquely spending massive government structure that is already in a ridiculous pile of debt. Taking more money from people, poor or wealthy, is always a bad idea, Liz! Her Twitter, she keeps talking about this wealth tax. The government spends money like a drunken sailor. They spend money on the most ridiculous and the most insane stuff ever. If you take more money from these wealthy people, what do you think? How do you think wealthy people get rich? How do you think they get wealthy? What do you think that they're doing right now with that 2 cent, which is really 2% tax? What do you think they're doing with that? You know what they're doing with that? They're investing it into businesses and helping the economy run, Liz. They're creating jobs, Liz. You can't just take it and put it in the hand of these bureaucrats that clearly don't know how to spend anything. There are a lot of different ways to reform the tax system, and I'm not going to sit here and act like it's perfect. I'm much more interested in something like a flat tax. But this 2% supposed wealth tax is just Elizabeth Warren using colorful language to demonize a much smaller group of people because everybody else is a victim, and they basically want to steal this 2% from very wealthy Americans and let the government decide where it goes. Here's a news flash, friends. The government does not know how to spend money wisely. If a wealthy person spends $100 on something, the federal government will spend $279 on that exact same thing. Their productivity is low. Stealing this money from where would otherwise be invested in the free market and putting it in the hand of bureaucrats is nothing more than a disaster, just like every single other thing that they touch. Elizabeth Warren has been in the government structure and in a variety of different committees for 10 to 20 some odd years now. And it's just so funny how people like her always demonize the people that are playing the game instead of the people that set the rules. She always complains about all of these millionaires, and how they're all skirting these rules and, oh, the government's going to come in and save it. How about the people that set those rules? How about the people that enforce those rules? Again, it's like starting the fire and then saying, only I can help you put it out. This is destructive. Elizabeth Warren loves pointing the finger at everybody else other than the exact same structure that created the environment for all these problems to thrive. That's exactly what they do, and that's what they always have done. And then they just point the finger at somebody else and demonize them. The wealthy is just saying, let's let everybody else pay for it. No, Liz, they're playing in the bounds of the rules. Liz, they're setting the rules and they're following them. Whose fault is that, Liz? She just gets on CNBC and she talks to you like you're an idiot. Like, oh, like, this is so silly. These silly millionaires and billionaires, we just need to take 2 cents, 2 measly cents, 2 cents. It's like, ah. And of course, the word of 2021 is equity. 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 4 hours ago, she tweeted, we can't let an inequitable juice process make the racial disparities of this clamdemic even worse. They're demanding racial breakdowns of the distribution of the Corona clap juice. What a surprise. Victim, victim, race, 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 race. They love doing that. Okay, I don't understand how a racial breakdown is really relevant. Shouldn't it be based on people who are the most at risk? They're just basically suggesting that these distributions are racially motivated. Okay. And just like her and most of her friends, they just choose to lie with statistics. They show you, oh, well, a disproportionate amount of these amount of people have had this juice. Okay, what about people that didn't want it? What about people that chose not to get it? Maybe because they don't trust it. What about that? You can lie with numbers. You can victim your way to whatever message you want to send. That's how they do it. Here's a victim. Everyone's a victim. Look right here. These numbers that I'm goosing specifically to prove this point. Prove it. The hits keep coming with these tweets. Let's remember this. Up to 4 in 10 people with student loan debt weren't able to graduate. Many because of high costs. Now they're in the worst of both worlds. Crushed by debt with no diploma to boost their earnings. Oh, really? They're crushed by debt and high costs because the cost of college is grotesquely inflated, primarily because of federal government intervention. But who cares about that, right? They have no diploma to boost their earnings because all of the jobs are being destroyed. Not to mention the fact that the value of that diploma is decreasing by the day because these colleges and universities don't have to compete with as much vigor for your dollars because it just gets guaranteed by the federal structure. Lit. On top of all that, removing the liability of existing student debt wouldn't get them that diploma. Just because their debt was theoretically canceled or paid off by the government doesn't mean that they would have the diploma. They'd still have no diploma. The new victim is GameStop. I'll be on CNBC closing bell at 3:30 to talk about GameStop and how it's long past time that regulators wake up and prevent market manipulation in the future. Oh, really? Market manipulation because of GameStop? Liz? Oh, really? You mean the one time where the market wasn't actually manipulated? Where a bunch of people just gathered together in the public square in their own free will right out in the open to purchase a stock that they freely wanted to purchase? Meanwhile, the real manipulation has been going on forever by the billionaire class, the exact same ones that you say we're all a victim from, and now you're going to jump in because of GameStop? Liz, more government intervention? Liz, more punishment to the exact same people that you're pretending to want to help? Liz! It never stops. Republicans are working on new racist voter suppression schemes because they're worried they can't win an election fair and square. Oh my God, the irony, Liz. I can't believe this is a real tweet. Oh my God. She's saying that Republican lawmakers suggesting that you need to present a photo ID, a government-issued photo ID, in order to vote in a selection is racist. That is racist. You need an ID to walk into a bar. You need an ID to get on an airplane. You need an ID to buy a pack of cigarettes. Yet you shouldn't need an ID to choose the leader of the free world, the leader of this country, the principal. All right. And their defense for this is that a lot of communities of color and younger voting age Americans don't have a government issued ID. All right, Liz. Well, maybe we should make it less expensive for them to get an ID then, instead of just saying that having an ID is racist. You know how much a piece of plastic costs? The amount of plastic that's on a government issued ID? Probably like a fraction of a penny. Liz, it's not racist. But hey, the world is garbage. Who actually cares about real solutions? Let's just call it racist. Let's just make somebody a victim because I want to push it this way. So it's a victim, or it's racism, or it's racist, or it suppresses somebody, or it's not fair to the little guy. Equity. And obviously you know that she supports the federal $15 minimum wage, which would be extremely destructive to the exact same people that she theoretically wants to protect. So there's no surprise there. And of course, a couple days ago, she was happy to sign the supposed D.C. statehood bill in the Senate, which wants to push to make Washington, D.C. the 51st state. As you can imagine, it is a logistical nightmare to do this, and there are a variety of different really, really well-researched articles on this topic, so I would encourage everybody to just go and do a little bit more research on D.C. statehood and why it may be bad or theoretically good, depending on your perspective on the matter. But I would encourage you to look into why D.C. was formed as a state to begin with. And if any proposal makes the most sense to me, I would agree with Peter Schiff on this matter, which is you should just make the Washington of D.C. just a really small area that surrounds just the federal government buildings and return the remaining land back to the original states that gave it to the District of Columbia. They gave it to them. And now you're just going to turn it into a state when it was given up by them with a specific contract? Just look into the history of why Washington, D.C. was formed and how it was formed. If anything, that land should be returned to the other states, and then the new Washington, D.C. should just be a very, very small piece of land around those federal government buildings. Oh well, who cares? Paying attention is lame. These are just her tweets for the last 5 or 6 days. No big deal. Who cares? Victim. Everybody's a victim. Whatever. Dope.